Okay, so are you ready to get a little bit dirty today?
I always come prepared.
All right, well, today's deep dive is taking us underground, but don't worry, you don't need a hard hat for this one. We're going deep into the world of mining geotechnical engineers.
Oh, yeah, these are the unsung heroes who make sure those mine shafts don't, cave in on everybody.
Exactly. And we've got a mountain of info to dig through from RoleCatcher career guides, interview prep, all that good stuff.
Sounds like they want you to get hired.
Right. They're practically handing us a roadmap. But before we grab our pickaxes and head underground, let's break down what these engineers actually DO all day. I mean, it's got to be more than just playing with rocks, right?
Oh, way more. It's a fascinating blend, actually. Imagine this. You're part geologist, right? Understanding how all the different rock formations behave.
Okay.
And part engineer, actually designing structures that can withstand incredible pressure.
So you need a good grasp of both the science and the practical application.
Exactly. You're analyzing these things called rock masses.
Rock masses.
Yeah, it's a fancy way of saying big chunks of rock. And you're figuring out, like, how strong they are, how they might move.
And most importantly, how to prevent any unexpected collapses.
Exactly. Got to keep everyone safe. That's where the geotechnical part really comes in.
Right, because they're not just digging holes, they're making sure those holes stay safe and productive for everyone working down there.
Precisely. And we're not just talking about any old hole in the ground. Remember those remote and exotic locations RoleCatcher mentioned as a perk?
Oh yeah, sign me up for this spelunking expedition.
Right. But those perks definitely come with some trade-off.
For sure. Working in a mine, especially if you're underground, has got to have its fair share of challenges. What did RoleCatcher say about that?
Well, they definitely highlighted the physically demanding work, the potential hazards you might encounter, and, of course, the long hours.
So, not exactly a walk in the park.
Not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
And speaking of demanding, RoleCatcher did not hold back on the skills needed either.
Like what?
Reading comprehension, judgment, and decision-making, even active listening. It's a pretty diverse skill set.
It's really interesting how they emphasize both analytical thinking and people skills.
Yeah.
You're not just working with rocks, after all.
Right, you've got to collaborate with miners, geologists, maybe even government agencies.
Exactly. You've got to explain those complex ideas, make sure everyone's on the same page.
So you need to be able to crunch the numbers and communicate effectively. It's not just about what you know, it's about how you explain it to other people.
100%. You might be talking to a team of miners 1 minute and then presenting your findings to executives the next.
It's definitely a balancing act. You've got safety on one hand and then productivity on the other.
No pressure, right?
Well, maybe a little pressure. But that's why RoleCatcher goes into so much detail about the career path.
Okay, so you've got the skills, you understand the challenges. Let's talk about what it actually takes to land that dream job.
Well, it usually starts out with an entry-level position. Okay, so you're fresh out of school, eager to make your mark. What are you actually doing on a day-to-day basis at that level?
Think of it like a crash course in real-world mining. You're probably assisting those senior engineers collecting data from those rock masses.
The ones we were talking about before.
Yeah, exactly. Running tests, getting your hands dirty, literally.
Sounds like a great way to learn the ropes. Seeing all those theoretical concepts from your textbooks come to life.
Yeah, for sure. Then as you start gaining more experience, you might move into a project management role.
Okay, so more responsibility, bigger projects.
Exactly. You might be overseeing certain parts of the mine design or even the construction.
And I'm guessing a few more of those. Describe a time you faced a difficult decision. Type interview questions, huh? RoleCatchers seem to love those.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Interviewers are going to want to see how you handle pressure.
Oh.
But speaking of those interview questions, one thing that really stuck out to me from that RoleCatcher guide was how much they emphasize communication skills.
Which makes sense, right? You're not just dealing with rocks and data all day.
Right, you have to work with people. In fact, they had this whole section on how to explain complicated technical stuff to a non-technical audience.
Super important. Whether you're talking to a room full of executives or a team of miners, you got to make sure your message is clear.
Totally. Like, imagine trying to explain to a mine manager why their tunnel might collapse.
Yeah.
Can't exactly bury them in technical jargon.
You got to be a translator, someone who can bridge the gap between the rocks and, well, the people who depend on them.
Yeah, a rock whisperer. And that ability becomes even more important as you start moving up to those senior level roles.
So we're talking like principal geotechnical engineer, maybe even director of geotechnical engineering. What does that look like day to day?
At that point, you're less about solving every single problem yourself, and more about setting the overall strategy for the whole geotechnical operation.
So you've moved from the trenches to the big picture.
Yeah, you're managing those teams of engineers, the budgets, making sure everything's up to code with the regulations. You might even be the one coming up with new technologies or like better ways of doing things.
Sounds like a pretty challenging but also really rewarding career path.
Oh, for sure. And one thing that RoleCatcher really emphasized was the importance of continuous learning in this field.
Which makes sense. I mean, the Earth isn't going to stop changing just because you finish school.
Right. They talked about how vital it is to stay updated on all the latest research, technologies, even just the way things are done in the industry.
And we can't forget those certifications. RoleCatcher practically dedicated a whole chapter to those.
Oh, yeah, those are huge in this field. It's like a signal to everyone that you are serious about what you do.
Like a badge of honor. You're saying, hey, I've put in the work, honed my skills, and I'm committed to upholding the highest standards.
Exactly. It shows potential employers and clients that you're not just talking the talk, you've actually walked the walk.
It's like a stamp of approval. Okay, so we've talked about the skills, the challenges, the career progression. But let's be real for a minute. For a lot of people, the big question is, what's the earning potential like?
Oh, RoleCatcher did not shy away from that at all. Let's just say the numbers are pretty attractive.
More enticing than a gold nugget.
Possibly. But it's not all about the money, of course.
Of course not. There's something to be said for having a job that feels meaningful.
Exactly. You're helping extract the resources that power our world. Everything from like these smartphones in our pockets to those renewable energy technologies that are going to save the planet.
So it's a career that's both intellectually engaging and actually makes a difference in the world.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's a field that's constantly evolving. In fact, RoleCatcher actually had a whole section on the future of mining geotechnical engineering.
Okay, let's dig into that a bit. What does the future hold for these subterranean superheroes?
Well, one thing that really jumped out was automation.
Like robots doing the dangerous stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Robots going into, potentially hazardous areas to do surveying, or AI crunching all that geological data way faster and more accurately than we ever could.
That's not just about brawn anymore. It's about using those high-tech tools.
Exactly. And you know what that means? The skill set needed is changing too.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, think about it. Data analysis, programming, remote sensing, that's becoming just as crucial as that traditional geotechnical know-how.
Wow, so the whole field's evolving. That's pretty exciting. New challenges, new things to learn. For someone who's listening and thinking, this sounds amazing, but where do I even start? What did RoleCatcher have to say about that?
They had some really good advice. They actually recommended reaching out to professional organizations.
Like what? Give us an example.
Well, one they mentioned specifically was the Society for Mining, Metallurgy, and Exploration.
That's a mouthful.
Right. They just call it SME for short.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So how does joining something like that help?
Well, you're tapping into this network of people who've been there, done that right. They've got mentorship programs, workshops, even online forums where you can connect with other folks in the field.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's like having a built-in support system as you navigate your career.
Exactly. And those connections could even lead to some cool opportunities, internships, research projects, maybe even your dream job.
So much valuable advice packed into these guides. It's really not just about what you know, it's who you know too.
100%. Even just attending industry conferences, virtually or in person, can open so many doors.
Definitely a great way to get your foot in the door, make those connections, maybe even present your own research someday.
There you go. It all starts with that curiosity, and the willingness to learn, of course. Oh, and the courage to get your hands a little dirty, both literally and figuratively.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the nitty-gritty technical stuff to the ever-changing skills you need to really make it in this field. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway is the impact these engineers have.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, they're out there keeping those miners safe, making sure we can get those resources out of the ground, and they're even helping shape the future of the whole mining industry. That's huge.
It's one of those careers that's both intellectually stimulating and truly meaningful. You're making a real difference.
And as we wrap things up here, one last thought I'll leave you with is this. The Earth is full of incredible secrets, and these mining geotechnical engineers, they're on the front lines of uncovering those secrets, all while making sure those resources are extracted safely and responsibly.
Absolutely. It's a career path with a bright future, that's for sure. So, to everyone listening, if you're even remotely intrigued by this blend of science, engineering, and adventure, well, this just might be the path for you. Until next time, keep those curiosity gears turning.